Hi everyone. So I was asked about a question about auditing subsequent receipt testing. So I'm just making this video for that request. So actually subsequent receipt testing is an alternative method to test accounts receivables. There are two methods in which we can test our accounts receivables. First is external confirmations and the other one is subsequent receipt testing. So in case we are not performing external confirmations, for which the reasons for which could be many, like we don't usually get responses, or it could be a firm policy also that a person does not opt for external confirmations. So how do we actually go through the subsequent receipt testing and what an auditor actually tries to achieve there? So the basic objective is of this testing is to test the existence and the valuation of trade receivables. And how do we do that? We do that by checking whether the customer has paid the balances after the year end. So number one point to this is the matching the balance to subsequent cash receipts. First of all, we try to agree the receivable balance to the cash that we have received after year end. If the customer has paid the amount post year end, it provides a strong evidence that the receivable existed at the reporting end year end date and that it was recoverable. So this is usually done by agreeing the receipt to the bank statement. Ideally, bank statement should clearly show two three things. Suppose invoice number, customer's name, or the reference. But in case this information is not clearly visible in the bank statement, then we should ask for a remittance advice from the client so that we can agree that the amount that is being shown in the bank statement is actually belonging to the party of the client. Then secondly is monitoring the receipts during audit fieldwork. So it is a possibility that some invoices might be raised near to the reporting period end. Suppose if a year end is 31st March, so there's a possibility that the invoices are raised on 25th of March. So there's a time period in receiving those invoices. So we would try till end of our audit, we'll try and check whether the amount is received. In case the amount is not received in our audit period, so what we do is we cannot really rely on subsequent receipts alone then, because the amount is not received. In that case, what we need to do is we need to do another independent evidence. We need that to support the existence and value of that receivable. So basically we need to confirm that the amount really existed and the value is only this much only as has been shown in the financial statements. So this can include the evidence like shipping document. We can confirm that the item was actually shipped and now it has been a receivable amount. Or we can have a delivery note. We can have the proof if in case it's a service, not a product, or relevant correspondence with the customer. So this evidence should confirm not only that the balance was earned, but also that amount recorded was valid and recoverable at the time. Importantly, any internally generated evidence should not be there. It should be some external evidence that we have already read in SA 500. We usually do that an external evidence is more reliable than an internally generated evidence, right? So if based on our testing we conclude that the receivable was never actually due, or it was recorded at maybe a wrong amount, then what do we need to do? We need to assess whether it is appropriate to maybe write off the balance, or maybe there is a probability or a need for a provision to be provided. So if this testing performed does not actually provide you sufficient appropriate audit evidence, we should consider performing additional procedures. And one of such additional procedure is to inquire the employees independent of the receivable function, maybe sales team or some other account managers. These teams often have a better insight into the payment disputes, if might be it might be possible that there's a dispute. So that could give you an alternative procedure, and it could depend from engagement to engagement. Then any unsettled or any unpaid item, if there are, they should also be assessed for the collectability by considering like the aging of receivables. It could happen that a receivable is lying very long. We should consider whether we'll be getting it or not. Why are they lying in our accounts? Then customers' payment history can be traced, and we should check if there's some dispute ongoing because of which we are not receiving our payments. So in conclusion, we document our overall conclusions on whether audit objectives for the subsequent receipt testing has been met or not. We also evaluate any errors identified in the sample, whether they need to be extrapolated or not, since we are just testing a sample over a population, and whether they exceed our CT limit or the clearly trivial limit that we call in our auditing. So all these things you need to take care of. Any factual or judgmental or misstatement, if you find any, should be properly moved to summary of misstatements, SOM, that we call as. And if any adjustment is required to be made for that particular thing, that should also be taken care of. I have recently performed an AR testing, and in which we as a firm performed it by subsequent testing only. And there was one sample which we traced till end of our date of reporting, of signing our audit report, and it was not received. What we did was we asked constantly if there is some communication with the client that could evidence that the amount will be certainly be received, so that we don't just ask for a provision to be provided. So for one sample we did get the communication. For one of the sample we received the payment just very few days before. So it is that part of audit which is taken care till the end. So even if you're performing the testing way before your signing date, it should be re-seen again and again until your all samples are concluded fairly. So that was about subsequent receipt testing. It is very nice, a little technical, and a proper steps are there that you need to follow, and I think you'll be able to test it efficiently and in a fair manner.